Yo, stupid landlord. What the hell you think you're doing? Throw me out the window just because I'm 2 days behind in rent. What kind of a stupid brain do you have? So hopefully somebody will be interested in the services I have to offer. Because otherwise, I will just die on the spot. Oh, would you look at that? There's a customer. Too dead, so please give me money for food, please. This is the client's Spider-Man type character who is god level strong, and my job is to convey as much power in an image as possible, since according to him he hasn't been able to capture that in an image yet. So he should be harnessing the power of the fabric of the universe or whatever to his katana as blue lightning or electricity, while the ground below him breaks and he's levitating slightly above the ground. To begin, let's act out a variety of possible poses that the character could be in. Obviously, the legs will have to be changed since I'm not able to levitate in real life. Now, I saved a few suitable frames from this video and ended up selecting this one for no particular reason, just felt right. Now there's this experimental feature in Clip Studio Paint that allows you to extract any pose from any photo onto the 3D character model. It actually got around 40% of the pose right, but the remaining 60% had to be corrected manually though. But yeah. Let's start out with sketching the pose now.
But Chala, aren't you just tracing a 3D model? How does that take any skill?
It still requires knowledge of anatomy to end up with something that isn't just a plain, boring tracing of the basic shapes the model is made of, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still applying my own coding on top of that reflects my knowledge as an artist. Like, if somebody else were to trace the same pose, it would reflect what's going on in their brain. So you still end up with different results. And yeah, the pose was my creation as well though. So as I segue to planning the lighting, I added in some intense electricity shapes that are powering the katana on his back. So I used that as a light source to light up his left side with the lasso tool here. Just made some very concrete shapes, tried to be decisive, and it felt like it was appropriate to fill the other side of him up with light from the actual environment. Mentally, I was ready to jump into coloring, but I remembered that he isn't supposed to be just naked and actually has like a suit design going on. So that's the problem with superhero outfits. They're just spandex suits that are just muscles on display with a couple folds on top of it to indicate that there's fabric. It's the time to slap some color on this thing for real now. For real this time. Or more like under the thing actually, to be more accurate. So this Saturday solid 20% of finishedness to the final product. So now that the foundation is laid out, it's time to render it to a finer level. The main technique I used on the character was doing different levels of reflectiveness on different parts of the suit. So some were shinier than others were more matte. The narrow yellow accents here got like a very shiny finish. They reflect the light sources directly. They don't diffuse anything. Very advanced stuff. It's just semi-advanced. In general, I tried to avoid blending too much and keep the character composed of these smaller graphic shapes to give it a more comic booky feeling, which felt appropriate. It's a Spider-Man. It felt like the time was right to clean up the electricity so it wouldn't look so sketchy. Did that with the lasso tool, and that added like another 15% of life to the picture. Cool. I'm very precise with the numbers today. So 1.5 hours remaining on the clock, and I had barely touched the background. So I shifted focus to that, or tried to at least. 5 signs you have ADHD and autism. Number 1. You jump around different parts of the canvas when you're supposed to be focusing on one. Anyway, let's block in some shadows on these concrete pieces. These don't have to be super detailed because they're going to be blurred later to give the scene more depth. The ground was still untouched, so let's change that. We need more cracking going on here, and we need like a better transition from the pieces that are on the ground or a part of the ground that aren't pieces yet. We need solid ground, 2 pieces transition. So yeah, this just made the whole thing pop like, I don't know, 8, 6, 5% more. Last thing on the list was adding lots of smoke around the character and small debris. I went with a fairly stylized approach for the smoke plumes, making it emerge from the center point of the impact, the force field impact on the ground. Now, the timer had hit 0 at this point, but I just took a little bit of extra time to clean the whole thing up, to do a tiny bit more rendering before I was able to deliver it to the client. No major overtime done on this one. I was pretty satisfied with the end result.
Hi, welcome to my sauna.
The client came to me with an unusual quest. Basically, they wanted me to do a whole ass wall of sketches of their 2 characters that they sent me a very detailed document of describing every inch of their body, every inch of their personality. First, I was a bit hesitant to accept it because they wanted me to come up with my own scenarios for the 2 characters and like a lot of them to fill up the whole page with. So this felt more like a writing commission than an art commission in a way, but you know, I thought,
Fuck it, mate. I can do that shit.
They did also send me a document filled with potential sketch ideas in case I didn't want to come up with my own scenarios, but they did heavily prefer me to do that, to come up with my own. So anyway, to kick it off, I did simple portraits of the characters to get to know them, to warm up. They had also sent me 3D models of the characters made in The Sims as visual reference, and that proved to be useful in multiple scenarios, this one being the first scenario. Very nice. Once I realized though that it took me almost 40 minutes to do these 2 portraits, I knew it was gonna be real tough to fill up the rest of the page with a lot of sketches, with enough sketches, because only 3 hours, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, the next idea I had was provided by the idea sheet. It was halfway from there, and I added my own elements on top of it. Thought it would be simple poses, didn't use reference, didn't use shit, didn't use anything. And it took me too much time. Almost an hour. Nice. Not nice at all. It's almost half the time has already gone by. And I only had 2 sketches on the page. So to speed things up, I grabbed a visual reference for the next one for the pose. It was like a promo image for Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Thought it would be fitting. It would be an interesting thing to explore. Yeah, it actually worked because this one went faster than any of the previous images. 50 minutes remaining. Next I went for a scene that included simple standing poses, so I thought the reference wouldn't be necessary again. But it was necessary. What I should have done instead was go to Graphit Studio's store to browse hundreds of high-quality reference photo packs and used code CHALAFollowers15 for 15% off your entire order. There was still a gaping hole in the canvas over here, so to fill it up I just did a little overtime, did like something simple like a half-body shot. The dude getting real heated over some meeting he's a part of fits his personality according to the documents, and yeah, I sent it up. The client did enjoy it. However, they wanted me to add 2 more hours on top of the entire thing, so they upgraded to the next tier, the 5-hour tier. So yay! Let's add 2 hours on the clock and continue. Credit to me for the idea on the next one. I wanted to go for like a top-down shot of the girl climbing a ladder to some undisclosed, potentially spooky location, and the dude looking up worriedly. Or like, not worriedly, just cowardly. That's not how you use that word, but that was like a "You'll cowards don't even smoke crack" moment. Yeah, the perspective was tough, so I used 3D again to aid the process, but even with 3D it was tough. It was still looking a little wonky, like I wanted to go for like a wide angle perspective, but it ended up looking weird. I couldn't set it up just properly enough somehow. But yeah, It took a lot of time. Only 38 minutes remaining for the remainder of the page. So yeah, I thought I'd do something larger for the next one to give an illusion of the page being more filled up than it actually is. So the idea came from their idea sheet again, because who has time to come up with scenarios, you know what I'm saying? But heavy 3D usage again on this one. Had to get like an auditorium background going with a lot of chairs. So just downloaded some model and used that. But yeah, I had time to draw our protagonists, our main characters in, but the timer had 0. So I had to run the overtime clock again to draw in a bunch of NPCs who were interested in what our protagonist has to say, but some were also not. It's all in the body language. All in the body language. This took 40 minutes of overtime, but I do think that the page does look more filled this way. It does look like it would meet the client's expectations. So I sent it off. This is a repeat customer. They first appeared in the first episode of this commission series with the furry thumbnail, the clickbait that worked very well. Maybe I should do something similar. Anyway, similarly to back then, he requested me to draw another Kingdom Hearts character. Back then, I made the mistake of trying to construct a pose from scratch without the reference, and that ended up taking up a large chunk of my time. So I'm not gonna repeat that mistake. I did another reference shoot for the pose, and that was pretty nice. Felt interesting. Uncensored feet available on my Patreon. This pose felt like the most appropriate according to my gut feelings. The plan proved to be successful because I managed to complete the base sketch with only like 20 minutes. The types of clothes I was wearing in my reference were a little different than what the character had on, but they still helped me figure out the clothing folds and such. Overall, the sketch just went smoothly. The only part where I had a little trouble with was the foreshortening on his leg. It kind of looked a little bit like he just has a small leg if you don't look too close, if look at it far away. But I decided to ignore it for now and hop over to Blender to do a 3D tracing of this keyblade. The reason being so that I could just draw it more easily later. But the thing is, it was kind of wasted time because I could have just taken this side view image and warped it on the canvas in a similar manner. But mistakes happen sometimes. So lesson learned, I think, but I did at least got some 3D practice. Before returning to the canvas, I had also taken a new reference photo of myself with boots on this time, no feet. Just wanted to help myself figure out this leg perspective with this new reference, and it kind of worked. Now I sent this over to the client for review, and they wanted one change there, and that was for me to add a little smirk or like a smile on the character's face, so it wouldn't be as serious. Easy enough. I did that and proceeded to the coloring. After throwing in the flats, I had around 1 hour remaining to shade the entire thing, which was pretty good. I wasn't sure what type of lighting setup I should go with, but I remembered one random image that I found on Pinterest like a few years ago that has been sitting in my board. Just, you know, one of those images that show how lighting changes the mood. And I looked at it and picked this hopeful lighting setup from there. Because of this, he's on the beach smiling at the camera. So yeah, logic. You gotta have logic, come on. Reason, Ableton, FL Studio. You gotta have that. Now to kick it off, I added in the red sunlight first, using lasso shapes, similarly to how I did the electricity lighting on the Spider-Man character earlier. So yeah, this actually saves more time because I don't have to blend things out and like do halftones or whatever. Gives the piece a more decisive look overall as well, which is cool. Next, similarly, I added in a blue top right light because it's not yet night. The sky is still bright, not twilight. That was so dumb. Yeah, I forgot that his gloves were fingerless. But yeah, it's a Kingdom Hearts character that's some real hot topic style. Yeah, after throwing in a quick occlusion pass, I changed the ambience color to a more yellow tone for a warmer look overall. Thought that would be more fitting. With that done, I still had 10 minutes remaining, so I used those up to add some more detail to the rest of the environment. Yeah, and I finished within 3 hours. Very nice, very nice, very nice. This is the client's Red Dead Online character. They requested a scene where he is in the middle of the shot, behind a tree, hiding from 3 hunters that are coming his way from behind a hill in the background. The scene should be close to nighttime. Now, the most important element here is the story, which needs to be clearly readable on first sight. To help myself achieve this, I did some thumbnailing in my sketchbook before even touching the real canvas, where I figured out problems such as how to fit 4 figures into a scene, a whopping 4 of them, and how to make it flow well. So I remembered a concept from a book called Framed Ink, and there was this one shot where I was like animating the scene. So I basically just copied that concept with the guns in this sort of curve shape, and I tried to make the wilderness around them emphasize that as well. With the composition problem solved, I ran the clock and started off on the real canvas, starting with the position of the main tree that our protagonist will be using as cover. Since there are a whopping 4 characters in the scene now, it was essential to use the 3D figures to save as much time as possible. I didn't do anything fancy for the poses, just kind of simple walking poses for the enemies, simple standing pose for the main character. It's like, what else is he gonna do behind the tree? Like plank? No, he gonna be standing. So drawing the outfit on the main guy was pretty simple, pretty straightforward. However, something that I did get stuck on was the hands that are interacting with the shotgun. Typical artist moment. But yeah, I brought in a simple 3D model for the shotgun to help myself visualize how the hands would interact with it in 3D space, and yeah, that solved the issue. Now, it was a good idea to have the enemies' faces covered. That way I didn't have to draw faces, didn't have to do any problem solving, didn't have to get any face expressions right. And also, the enemies are quite far from the camera, so I don't have to do as much detail on them, which is cool. All that was left to do for the sketch now was the environment, as planned on the thumbnail. So kind of easy, it didn't take a lot of time. I thought I'd draw these little bushes out with lines at first, but yeah, that would have been a waste of time. Would have been a massive waste of time, so I just indicated their general shapes, placements with these lines. Before delivering the sketch to the client, I just defined the separate elements a little more clearly, and I sent it off. They requested one change, and that was to switch up the position of one of the enemies to place him farther behind the hill. So I just proceeded to do my black and white to color workflow, and I ended up actually not doing that either. I just went straight to color because who cares, right? My process was not very linear on this piece, and I jumped around different areas, started creating these bushes before even putting down flat colors on the enemies, which are more important than the bushes. 5 signs you have ADHD and autism. Eventually I noticed that the enemies are missing colors, so I added that in there as well. Yeah, very nice. Color is good. We need color on main parts of the image. What the fuck am I saying? When it came to the main tree, I referenced a type of tree called bristlecone pine. I don't know how geographically accurate it would be, or like how does the rest of the environment combine with this type of tree? Who cares? Like literally, it's fantasy art. Like it's just the tree trunk has some cool twisty shape, so that's why I went with it, and it's also quite thick. With around an hour remaining on the clock, I started more seriously shading everything and rendering important areas of the image on an extra layer. That's above everything, so no more layers, just one layer. That's the way to go for it with rendering. At one point in this process, I realized I had missed an opportunity to indicate the golden hour sunlight on the top parts of the hills in the background there, so I added those in, and that added like 10-12% more life to the image, and very, very good decision. Good that I caught that in time. Additionally, I added in some more trees in the background with this pine forest brush, which I've actually had for like 5 years or something, but never actually had an appropriate use case for it. I've used it in inappropriate cases, lol, but they are surrounded by pines in the scene. So, but yeah, the timer hit 0, so I just did some final color tweaks before delivery and sent that shit off and was done with it. to do. It's
Buy my shirts right now, or else.
Bruh, check out my SoundCloud.
Hey kid, wanna buy some reference packs? I got you covered, fam.